Hi, my name's Delany Burks, and tonight we're back with
Lorenzo, Mena, and I'm one of the leading scientists for the Centers of Disease Control.
This is Disease Now. Tonight we're talking about Tuleremia bacteria. So my first question for you is, what symptoms would patients with this bacteria experience?
Ooh, that's a very good question. So I want to first start off by saying that this bacteria actually demonstrates a lot of very flu-like symptoms. So it's easy for it to be misdiagnosed most of the time. So patients will tend to exhibit fever, chills, headache, myalgias. But actually one of the most common forms of tuleremia is the ulceroglandular tuleremia. And that actually is very interesting, where the patient will typically be bitten via vector, and essentially an ulcer develops at that site, and it can be very, very painful. And it's a very common form of people to identify whether it's tuleremia or not.
And when you say glandular, what kind of glands does it affect?
Yeah, good question. So it does affect the lymph glands.
And that's the most common.
Mm-hmm. And then it has been known to demonstrate also targeting the eyes and pharynx also.
So my second question is, what is the infection rate of the disease, and how is the bacteria transmitted?
Another really good question. So there have been roughly 200 annual cases of tuleremia, and of those cases, it can vary oftentimes, and I only say that because tuleremia can be misdiagnosed often. And the reason as to why that is because of this easy misdiagnosis for people thinking it's the flu, so people tend to disregard it. But of those 200 cases, we often see a 2% lethality. And the bacteria is essentially found in hares, in rabbits, in rodents, and things like that. So that's where its natural reservoir is. However, ticks, so vector-borne, or vectors also will essentially bite the human. And then from there, that's where we see the bacteria being transmissible to humans. And it's actually a stage 2, meaning that once the human obtains that bacteria via the vector, it typically dies out, because it's not like rabies in the sense where for rabies to be transmissible from animal to animal, usually you get the foaming at the mouth and they'll bite, and then that's kind of how it spreads and things like that. Whereas this one, it just dies out.
So is the disease contagious between humans?
No, not at all. There haven't been any reported cases of it being transmissible from human to human. But who knows? There might be out there. We don't know for sure.
Always learning more. So my last question for you tonight is, are there any forms of treatment for this bacteria?
Yeah, really good question. So one of the actual common forms of treatment is going to be antibiotics, and that typically would be in the form of streptomycin. I know there have been reported cases of them utilizing doxycycline, which is often used for acne and things like that. But an interesting part about that is that the Soviet Union actually developed a vaccine for this bacteria, and it used a weakened or attenuated live vaccine strain, and we're not able to utilize that vaccine here in the United States. And interestingly enough, that vaccine itself protects against type A and type 2 of tuleremia, but I think the reason as to why we don't utilize that is probably the potential it has to be a bioterrorist weapon.
Great. It was really great having you on the show tonight.
Always
I appreciate
a pleasure.
all of your information.
Love to spread the knowledge.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Bye, guys.